The scary thing is I have quite a lot of conversations with SEOs and they don't even realize that you can check crawl stats inside Google Search Console. And these guys are like top guys and they've never seen that section of Search Console. And it's like, oh, you should probably do that route first. But once you've done the Search Console route, then I would definitely suggest if you can get the data, either use it utilizing Cloudflare or if your server will just give you the data, because not all servers will give you the data, is trying to get the logs because yes, you've just optimized Search Console and the Google bot. However, there's a lot more bots out there and you want to control these bots because actually they could be, let's say, for instance, your time zone where most of your users are logging on is, 4 p.m. You could have a random bot hitting your website between the hours of 3 and 5, which is actually crushing your bandwidth on your website and slowing everything down.
I'm John Wright, and you're listening to Affiliate BI, the business intelligence and affiliate marketing podcast brought to you by StatsJohn. Welcome to the Affiliate BI podcast. Today we're chatting with Karl Hudson, who's a UK-based SEO, and he's the founder of Searcheroo SEO agency. Karl, welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Pleasure to be here.
And so when I interview SEOs on this podcast, I like to ask most of them saying, if you had to build an affiliate site with a minimal budget, knowing how competitive affiliate marketing is today, is it too late? And all of them, without hesitation, they say, no problem. They're good to go. I kind of want to ask you the same question.
Yeah. So, is it too late? I would always, obviously, given the fact that huge updates have been happening recently, I would probably err more on the side of caution nowadays with the whole traditional affiliate marketing strategy. So obviously traditionally it would just be, you're knocking up a website typically just to promote a product, and then earning from that. Whereas nowadays I would definitely be looking more at how do I create a brand around this website? How does the website actually attract people who are just interested in reading the content as opposed to, I'm trying to rank for money keywords. I'm getting them to click through. Obviously, Google hates, and it always has done, doorway pages. Now, if you think of the traditional affiliate marketing, it was pretty much set up to be doorway pages that you click on. You've got all your CTAs and everything, basically trying to get the person straight away to click off. And that's what Google apps, it's hated it from the day dot, but over time it's been developing how to tackle it, I guess. And I think this is, the latest updates being one of the ways it is really honing in on tackling it. So if I was to start an affiliate project, obviously we're still quite involved in some affiliate stuff, but some of the affiliate stuff we're now more involved in is things that already have quite a bit of brand stuff going on. So on social media, and they already have a good following. They've got that natural branded search volume. And then we kind of get involved at that point. So yeah, the strategy would probably now be trying to build up some type of social media following, some type of content that, is good for that type of user and encourages the user engagement signals. And then going down, maybe email marketing. So bringing in all the areas of marketing side, some email marketing funnels, stuff like this to try and hone it all in. And that's how I would approach it. It would take time. That's the one problem with that now. It's not an overnight success. It's going to take you, you're building a brand, right? It's going to take a while. That's my standpoint on it, really.
That's a great answer because this is a hot topic as of right now. I've got friends sending me messages going, "Hey, do you know someone who can help me get out of this? Google's just destroyed my site." And this is probably all within 10 days. I've had 3 different friends saying we're screwed. And I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I think you need to be more intentional. It's not just brand, it's intentional going, okay, what value can we add? And it can't be just another content site because Google's already seen that content. It's like, you're giving me nothing special. So probably the worst one I've seen are a few different websites that have amazing like digital PR style links. And Google still said, we don't care about your amazing links.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a few times. Obviously, we do one of the brands we also have aside from Searcher is like a link auditing brand. So we get a lot of people come in, especially with the latest update. You know, there was a huge round of like spam penalties dished out. And when you're looking at some of the sites you're looking and you go, you know what, this site doesn't really deserve this spam penalty. It's maybe it's got a few paid for guest posts, but the rest of it's maybe like natural digital PR lists. Well, natural, we'll do in quote
Yeah.
digital PR listings, you know what I mean? And yeah, it's if I'm being honest, I feel really bad for a lot of website owners, especially ones who, if you look at, I believe Eric Lanches posted something recently, which his opinion is, you know, they're very much going after user engagement metrics now, and that's what they've kind of pinned it on. So you could have fantastic content, but if your whole site as a whole doesn't have the user engagement, that can pull you all down. And obviously, it leads into why you would see rise of the likes of Reddit, Quora, places like this, because the users are, when they're on those sites, they typically stay on those sites and they're clicking around and they have their own user like flow and experience, right? And that's kind of what you need to try to start doing, in my opinion, on your own website. It's what you should be doing. Whereas obviously we touched on it before, the traditional affiliate model was never set up to be like that.
So if affiliates are at risk of being disrupted, I got a two-part question. It's like, what are you seeing on the SEO consulting side? Are they also getting hit bad because some of their clients have just gone bust? But I'm also wondering, the second part is for someone like yourself who's done a lot of personal branding, are you experiencing more people coming to you?
Yeah, so the first part, I would say from a consultancy point of view, obviously if affiliates was a big chunk of a consultant's revenue stream, then hopefully that affiliate was a big super affiliate and has plenty of money in the bank to kind of pivot into something else. And then obviously would leverage the consultancy skills, because there's been a lot of rumors of, and it's every year, you've been in SEO for a while yourself, George. Every single year, whenever there's a Google update, SEO's dead, right? That's all you ever hear. But obviously, it's just SEO's change. It's forever changing. And I don't ever think SEO will die. It's just the route that it goes down. Obviously, you have to pivot and change with it. So I think, like, from a consultancy point of view, yeah, I think there will be quite a few hurting at the moment. We tend to deal a lot more with e-commerce sites and then the actual SEO agency owners. So, you know, they tend to be dealing with a lot of the brands. We do the odd brand here and there, affiliate brand and things, but we don't do a lot with them. So we haven't really been impacted from that side. But I'd imagine a lot of consultants have. And I've kind of forgot what the second question was. Sorry.
The second one was like more like for what you do specifically, has this positively impacted you? Because you might be on the better side of the fence where maybe you've positioned yourself to be in a better position and you've done a lot of personal branding. So when people are panicking, they're actually going, who can I trust? And who
Mm.
can I trust in the SEO spaces? We know that that's never easy. And, you know, doing videos and podcasts and, you know, really branding your own name. I think these things help.
Well, that's what it was, something that actually we've only really been, Dooley and myself, have only been doing in the last year, probably, is really ramping up the personal branding side, primarily because we almost felt about a year back that this was going to be the route that was going to be taken, you know, connecting actual people to the website and the brand and all these different, I know you're a fan of Jason Bernard, all these different entities and creating this sort of knowledge panel, right? And then having that user, that person connected to all of those entities just adds value across the board. And that's kind of the approach we started adopting. And I think, yeah, I think it's something that people should start. The hardest part with this, and I still struggle with it hugely today. Dooley's a lot more extroverted than I am. I'm the data guy. You've seen it on like LinkedIn and things mentioning crawl budgets, all that. I'm the guy who likes to dabble in that side. I'm not the guy who likes to be on the camera. Although if I've had a few drinks, sometimes that changes. I usually don't mind so much, but like I'm a lot more introverted. Um, so it's quite difficult for I think the skill set of SEOs typically are to be more introverted. You tend to be a lot more of an introverted guy, right? And that's a problem when it comes it's a problem when it comes to doing podcasts and things like that. Because it's completely out of your comfort zone. Um, so yeah, I think there's going to be a definite mind shift change with SEO as it becomes more of a sort of digital marketing presence. I've always sort of labeled myself as a digital marketer as opposed to an SEO because I've always used paid ads as an avenue into SEO anyway. And then I'm not a social media ad expert, but I dabble. But yeah, I've always used paid ads and then went that route into the SEO just to hack time because you can very quickly figure out what works. And you, at the same time, if you can generate that ROI, it's happy days all around because then you can keep that going at the same time as running a organic SEO strategy. So
And maybe to tie some of these initial discussions together of the B2B stuff with personal branding, the B2C, it seems like with video, it's people are shifting how they search or look for things or how they find trust signals. And it's Reddit, it's Quora, it's YouTube Shorts, it's TikTok, it's social media. It's we've always known these things to be their own search engines on their own, but it's kind of like this is like an evolving part of search where I wonder maybe Google's never going to ever disappear, but I wonder if their power is just going to start to drop in terms of, their dominance in search.
I think this is why they're very much getting it. Google's also quite smart. They're quite quick to buy things. So YouTube was bought by them. I imagine down the line, I know there's already been the agreement with Reddit, but obviously that wasn't purchasing of Reddit, it was just use of data. Surprisingly, off the back of that, then all of a sudden Reddit has a huge boom in the search. So I think Google's smart enough, or the guys obviously that run it are smart enough to sort of pivot themselves and acquire more and more data funnels. So I don't think Google's going anywhere. I know there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, get on Bing," they're increasing market share. But the reality is, yes, they've increased market share, but it's only a few percent that they've increased. And a lot of it's all around, they were the first with the whole open AI. Um, so is that just a bit of a buzz? I'm pretty sure I read something the other day. There's already been quite a significant drop off from the launch of OpenAI and the Bing search trend. So, will that continue? I don't know. I think obviously leading into the whole SGE with Google and things like this and, the whole generative experience, my personal opinion on this is it's all for Google to push users down to the money making keywords, to trying to get them further down that funnel. And I think they'll apply SGE to the top of the funnel keywords to get them down to the bottom quicker. Rather than users sitting on trying to search, 5 or 6 queries, because each of those queries is costing Google money, right? Whereas if they can do one query and that one query goes, shit, most people, search for this actually end up here. Have a look at these. I think that's the route they're going to go with SGE. I don't think in niches like, I know you're quite, or I was heavily involved, I'm still slightly involved in the gambling industry. I don't think they're going to be affected as much. Like there's too much jurisdiction involved and very, very big fines for Google to put something on that might be wrong. And we've all seen, you can manipulate AI, right? We're all practicing that at the moment, manipulating AI. So I just don't see it being applied in those niches, but I do see it on the more broader keyword niches.
Makes sense. I mean, what you've described is kind of like the whole journey of top of funnel, bottom of funnel. And I think enough websites don't do it themselves internally. And I would say for without a doubt, I've been guilty of that in the past. But those are things that I try to kind of preach and going, I've talked to these people and these are the things that I think are true. And I think what you've explained is, an interesting way for Google to actually move people into those funnels where the higher converting phrases or keywords tend to be more bottom of funnel.
Yeah. But if you also look at, like, for instance, in the gambling industry, we've been having to deal with anywhere up to 8 ads on the page. Like that is just a norm, right? Whereas you go on normal search and you've got two at the top. So now you're going to have it, potentially a huge SG thing, which will cover, cover quite a bit of the sort of top of the page criteria. And then that's only going to be used to push users further down the funnel, in my opinion. And because it costs as well, right? There's always a cost of like retrieval element here. And it's costing Google probably quite a bit more than it would be just to supplying the data from the databases, because it's now having to run, an AI element, which is going to cost quite a bit. So I think that's the only way in my head that they can justify that cost is by getting the users from, the top down to the buying keywords essentially. Um, yeah.
Would you say then that if you're an affiliate and you've been affected by any of these core updates, that you would reduce the number of affiliate links? I mean, one of my friends who literally just got destroyed by Google, I went on the site. I'm like, it's beautiful, content's expert, maybe not strong on the link side, but one thing I noticed, I'm like, I wonder if Google actually cares about how many outgoing tracking links there are on pretty much a lot of the pages.
Yeah. So one of the strategies we've been adopting recently. So obviously let's just stick with the gambling examples where I've got a lot of experience in. So, your typical gambling affiliate site usually has a table which has about 10 links on. All of those links all go out to various different affiliate networks, etc. And that's pretty much norm across the site. They might have a few banners as well on each. They've got loads of outbound links across multiple pages, right? And it's always in prominent areas, up higher up in the sort of macro content. So what I would be looking at straight away is reducing down to say top 3 affiliate ads, but then those are 3 affiliate ads. I wouldn't have them all going out from one page. They would be internally linked to the actual specific review of that product or company. Then that one review page would then outlink to affiliate link. That way you've just, well, you've absolutely hemorrhaged all your outlinks to just having a couple of pages on your site that have outlinks out. And I feel like that's going to be a better trend for users because you're almost, you've got the user on the page, they're interested in the offer. Now that user has to engage with your page. He has to click a button, which takes him through to another page on your website. Guess what? It's another user metric. They're on your site. They're staying around. They're clicking about. Then from that page, they can click off because they're not against you clicking off, but they want you to provide value to the user, not just click on, click off. That isn't value.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes me rethink, some of our B2B SEO
Mhm.
strategies of doing affiliate program reviews and linking out. So definitely gonna have to think about that one. And maybe it's better to be, what's the word? Just kind of more on the cautious side and go, we don't know what Google's going to do in the next little while, but it's better to plan as if more carnage will happen.
Well, because if you also think some of these affiliates, especially in the spaces that we operate in, some of the affiliates are spending big money with Google, right? And they're spending big money on paid ads and things like this. So it doesn't make sense for Google to slap these websites too much when actually some of them are spending big bucks with them and or does it make sense? Because they may end up ramping up more of the big bucks being spent, I guess. But we all know, organic is, it's one of the biggest ROIs you'll ever get when it's there. But the key is obviously with everything in business, the main people who are hurting right now are the ones who didn't diversify traffic streams. If you started off from the start with a diverse traffic portfolio, one of the affiliate sites we recently bought in the gambling industry actually had more from social media than they did. So they didn't even have SEO, and that's why we've bought in because we're now the SEO arm to that business. Um, Things like this is just something that you should be looking at doing. The whole traffic diversity, and then it doesn't really matter if an update comes around. Yes, it might hit your numbers, but you should always have a big enough pool of traffic so you will still always be making money. It just might not be as much.
So I listened to you say on a clip with James Dooley. He asked you, what are your top 5 SEO tips for 2024? And looking here, I think you wrote or you said semantic SEO, aka topical authority, structured properly the site's structured properly, backlinks. Of course, you like to see that there's traffic behind it and website performance. I'm going to zero in on the semantic SEO and website performance because I remember just like looking at some of your posts on LinkedIn. You talked about how performance and the tech side can have like an important impact on the overall performance. So I just wanted to get your insight on that.
Yeah, so a lot of people have probably heard of Core, and if you haven't, I definitely recommend, looking up Core, holistic SEO. And obviously he was the very first guy, well, second guy, but he's really pushing the topical authority side and how people don't understand it. Now, from a performance point of view, it's going into the website and looking at start usually first part, I would always start with Google Search Console and look at where the Google crawling bot is going. Seeing if there's any areas on the website, it just shouldn't be wasting that crawl budget because every site has a limited amount of crawl budget. And obviously, you can start to see when real problems are happening, when you're seeing the crawled but not indexed section of the website, and that balance is becoming really, really skewed. Now, don't get me wrong, the best is to have that crawled but indexed. So crawled but not indexed is 0, but chances are on a bigger website, you'll probably not get there. But it's good, always good to have that as a really low amount. And the way you do that is by optimizing what Google is wasting on crawling. And, a lot of the times with WordPress sites, it's simple things like /feed /1//1/. So all these like separate URLs that you just kind of think, oh, they don't exist. However, for some reason, the Google bot thinks they do and goes down that sort of avenue with it. So you just have to be wary of that and whether or not you might need a site change. It could be permalinks issues, it could be adding things to robots.txt. It could be uh, restricting things in HTTP access. It all depends. And this is where the SEO side would come in. It would all depend on the website, the technology behind it, what platform, what server, etc. And how you would tackle those things. But once you start tackling those things, what actually starts to happen is you start to open up the website to the crawlers now hitting the pages that you wanted to crawl. And all of a sudden, you've got this balance of, it's indexing more pages, it's indexing more, it's indexing more. And then hopefully those user signals are starting to come in the website, which gains the momentum. You might have a few links coming in, which also obviously would help increase crawl budget. You've got more assets linking in. And then in time, that should hopefully improve the website as a whole. But again, this is all you can restrict the crawler and stop it from visiting those pages, but the crawler still needs to visit the pages to know that it shouldn't visit them anymore type thing. So it might hit them one more time and then it'll just not come back. Things like this is like, it takes time to do. It's not a simple, you'll do it and it's fixed. You might have to do it, test, wait a week or two, test, wait a week or two, test, and go that route with it. So it gets quite technical, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. And, the scary thing is I have quite a lot of conversations with SEOs and they don't even realize that you can check crawl stats inside Google Search Console. And these guys are like top guys and they've never seen that section of Search Console where you can check crawl stats and things like this. And it's like, oh, you should probably do that route first, learn that a little bit. But once you've done the Search Console route, then I would definitely suggest if you can get the data, either use it utilizing Cloudflare, or if your server will just give you the data, because not all servers will give you the data, is trying to get the logs because yes, you've just optimized Search Console and the Google bot. However, there's a lot more bots out there and you want to control these bots because actually they could be, let's say, for instance, your time zone where most of your users are logging on is, 4 p.m. You could have a random bot hitting your website between the hours of 3 and 5, which is actually crushing your bandwidth on your website and slowing everything down. So then when the users are hitting the website, guess what? Your user metrics are now all skewed because the website's taking forever to load. The CLS issues, potentially all of the page speed metrics issues, all of these things start to come into play because the server's slowing down because of database queries and all of this. So I would definitely, once you've done a step one, which is fix the Google bot element, step two, then look at what else is there. You know, how are users interacting with the website from a crawling perspective? From a user perspective, and how are the bots interacting with the website? And then look at, you know, one by one, going through and controlling, putting delays in, etc.
Yeah, you've answered a couple of my future questions there,
Sorry,
which is great.
that one went on a little bit.
No, it was perfect because I mean, I'm gonna jump back into. Would you say it'd be good to use the paid version of Cloudflare to look at the server logs? And
Yeah, the paid version of Cloudflare is great anyway.
yeah,
Really, really recommend that for all of its functionality. You know, all of its like speed optimization functionalities as well is really good. Again, you still want to be fixing and looking at the server elements, because obviously your server will still be handling a lot of database queries and things like this. So I would definitely be looking that side. I know recently we've been doing one on another gambling website, and thankfully, when I applied the fixes, it seems to have fixed most of the issues. So we're slowly getting there, but it's always one of them. You apply the fixes and you just have to wait and see what the crawler does. Hopefully it obeys. If it doesn't, you have to come up with another way of stopping it from crawling it. But yeah, that seems to, I would definitely suggest Cloudflare Pro, and just trying to, if you've got a decent web host, usually you're able to get the server logs from that way, because in that way you get a raw from the server. Obviously, Cloudflare is like a, you know, a protection across the server, but I would also be trying to get the server logs anyway, because Cloudflare will also block a lot of bots as well out of, which you can then also apply at a server level as well,
yeah.
just to really make sure they don't hit the site.
You want the double fail, so your server logs will catch something that Cloudflare might just be like, "Oh, we just blocked it for you. You don't need to know
Exactly.
what it is," and it could
Well,
be
we've actually had a case recently where it's still slightly ongoing. We've kind of got it under control now, but where there was like, you just, Cloudflare was letting these users through, and we were trying to restrict it to say we only want, you know, UK, Canada, New Zealand, or whatever, and it was still allowing users past that were actually from other countries still. So we had to apply sort of IP blocks on a server level to stop them hitting the site, as opposed to doing it from the Cloudflare level. And then, yeah, it is a bit, if it's very technical, it gets very technical, and I would definitely say work with a dev on it, because, you know, SEOs are great. I'm not the best dev, but SEOs are very good at identifying the issue. It's then obviously up to working with the more technical people to try and make that fix happen.
Would you, recommend or do you use, Google Looker Studio for integrating or connecting with, let's say, Google Search Console data? Or I'm sure you could probably even take this Cloudflare and server data into a your own Looker Studio template. So you can say, all right, I've got my dashboard here. So for all your friends all the SEO friends that haven't actually, done what they need to do to go inside Search Console and look at some of these server issues or these log issues, I'm kind of thinking maybe everyone just needs a Looker Studio template.
It would probably help. Tend to be a bit more of a dinosaur in that regard. I quite like just logging into the old search console, logging into, say, using Screaming Frog audit, and the server log audit one, and going through that with like a fine tooth comb. That tends to be the way I do it. Just, it's one of them where it's like there's always tools, right? And it's like sometimes I just feel like just working with the raw data, you might, because the tools might miss something. I don't know if it's just like the white hat, like the logic in my head might miss something, but yeah, I don't know. I would definitely say, like, if it displays the data nicer, because obviously the raw files are usually quite a mess. Let's face it, they're not pretty to look at. And, you know, you definitely need some modafinil when you're sat there going through a few million lines of crawls. But yeah, I would definitely say a Luca, yeah, the Luca Studio. That's the replacement of the Data Studio, right?
Yeah, it's I preferred the old name, but it's I think now everyone's finally calling it Looker Studio.
It's getting there. It's just like GA4, right? Initially, when it first came about, it's like, oh, this is so annoying. But actually, when you start playing with it a little bit, it takes a little bit to get things set up. But, you know, it is pretty decent. It's just annoying that you have to set it up now, whereas before it was all set up. That was the problem.
Yeah, I'm still getting my hands dirty with the GA4, but the more I talk to people, the more I'm like, okay, it is better for X, Y, and Z reasons, and you just gotta accept it. But there's a lot of people out there that are still pissed off.
Yeah, I tend to, if I'm being honest, with a lot of that sort of stuff, like GA4 and things like this, I tend to just divert to my dev and just say, look, set up this report. That's all I need. I don't need to know, how many hours it's going to take you to make that happen. Just get it done. Whereas before it was kind of like plug in the analytics code and, oh, guess what? We've got a report straight
Yeah.
away. Very easy.
But now you've got events and Google Tag Manager, and we
Yeah.
just started working with that, and wow, that's an eye opener. And I kind of think how many people are ever going to make this happen? Like the
No.
first time you start touching this stuff and you go through tutorials, you're like, I got a headache and I need someone else to do this.
Yeah, yeah. It's basically, it's almost like they've made it where, an SEO previously would be able to do it. Now you kind of need a JavaScript developer and some type of server dev to be able to make some of these DOM tags work. You know what I mean? The triggers, and you're like, why isn't this working? I'm following this tutorial and it's just not working.
And I think that's why there's now a lot of very wealthy SaaS
Mhm.
companies that do the analytics for you. Like, oh, we'll just connect it all automatically. All you got to
Yeah.
do is pay thousands of dollars a month.
And you just have to plug in your tag manager ID and away you go.
Yeah. So I want to pivot on the discussion and talk about investing because I know on your personal domain, you've got that as one of the things you do. So I wanted to ask straight up, what is your investment thesis? What are the things that interest you today?
Yeah, so at the moment we've set up a few side businesses where we're actually the investment we plow money from, say, some of our other companies into these investment companies, and then we're always on the lookout for. We get a lot of data and a lot of websites come in, so sometimes we get websites that we think, you know what, this guy just isn't the most technical, or there's elements of this guy's website that just needs an SEO to come in, and we offer to step in and become the SEO arm. There's elements where, like for instance, the gambling one, where they're fantastic at doing what they do, which was the social media side and building the brand, but they just did not have a clue with when it comes to SEO. So then, we talk numbers with them and we can usually negotiate quite a good deal for all parties because we can see the added value that SEO will bring very quickly. And that kind of with that project happened very quick. So within 3 months, I think there was something maybe it's about, let's say 1,000 traffic. And within 3 months, they hit 45K traffic. And like that sort of stuff is like exponential when it comes down to, bottom line figures. So you can usually leverage that against a better percentage in the partnership. But that tends to be what we try to only deal with people that we can actually work with. That's the key. Is you sometimes you can go into some of the best businesses that seem really lucrative, but if you can't work with the guy who you're partnering with and you can't really trust him, then I definitely wouldn't do business and investments with them. So most of ours tend to be off the back of all of the leads we get in, in some cases, with Dooley's local network and local sites, there's a lot of times where these local sites actually become reliant on the leads that are being passed through. And then they actually just have an open conversation where they actually just want you to become part of the business, because then that way they know they're secure and you're not going to go elsewhere with the leads, right? So there's always that element to it as well. So yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, have some skin in the game so you can, be our preferred partner. It's like affiliate marketing, but it's really the way business should be. And I agree as well with the sentiment that you want to work with people that you simply want to work with them, that you can trust them. I know in my situation of, having to raise capital for our company, it's kind of like at one point in time, there's a tipping point of going, okay, do we need the money or how desperate are we versus if we can just hold out, maybe there's someone else. And we were lucky that we weren't put in a situation where we had to accept a deal that I know for a fact we would have regretted.
Well, that's also the problem, right? Is in times of desperation, you can sometimes, accept something that just isn't really gonna work for you long term, and you know it deep down, and you think, "No, it'll be fine, I'll get over it." But actually all that starts to happen is it starts to fester, and then that negativity just you're not intentionally trying for it to sort of come out, but eventually it will come out, and then it could be the end of the business all through a decision that you made out of desperation. So, like, we try obviously, Dooley's one of the main guys I work with from an investment point of view, and we've had some big arguments, big blowouts, but it's almost a good thing because, it's setting the expectation of each party and what's expected from you and him. And then obviously there's always the boundaries, right? You're always you're both pushing each other, sometimes a little bit too much. And then it's like, whoa, you need to back off type thing. And that happened just in January. There was big disagreements on some of the investments we were doing and the avenues we were going to go in and things like this. And, we were back and forth for days and days and days. But then we got past that, and all of a sudden it's all great again. And that's kind of the key with any good partnership. You should be able to have like an open and honest conversation with them. Um, and not try to hide things because you don't think they would approve of it. It should be that level of transparency where they're almost like a lover. Like you should be that transparent with them. If you're not, then there's probably a problem.
Yeah, I mean, all those things, like you said, they will fester and then come to the surface, and the last thing you want is those problems just to simmer and then kind of blow up later on.
Exactly. And it could be like something tiny. That's the thing. Sometimes it starts off as this tiny little thing that if you just nipped it in the bud, then it wouldn't have then snowballed into this big problem. Um, and yeah, that's kind of how we operate. And it is something that we always have to touch base on. It's almost like every few weeks we just have a little bit of a check-in. We're quite prone to going away like together and just having with other investors or directors, just having like, a spa day and having like chats with the business. So outside of business, a bit of life, how's things going in your personal lives, work, because sometimes you're getting triggered because of everything else around you, not necessarily because of that business. So sometimes it's worth, from a business point of view, knowing, you know what, he's going through some stuff at the moment. I can maybe back off a little bit, or how can I help him get through it, which is the key bit. If you can help him get through this time, if you have a resource on your side that can help him, then if you can do that, it only helps build that bond a little bit better. And that's kind of the approach we've adopted. We always try to instill in people when we do sort of masterminds and things like this is, it's that level of honesty, it's that level of showing vulnerability basically to each other. And then it just helps that bond grow a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I think these are the parts of business and of having like emotional intelligence of
Mhm.
being able to like read someone, and it's almost like by you acknowledging the person could be going through something, it's almost like you're listening as
Mhm.
opposed to someone saying they don't listen to me, and it's like, well, what do you mean they don't listen? Of course they're listening, but it
Exactly. Yeah.
it's the part of life that no one really talks about enough, and it's kind of ironic that you just need to talk your way through it sometimes.
Yeah, and it's just surprising how, like I said, a tiny little problem just blows up into something huge if you don't nip it in the bud quick. And that's, yeah, I think the best partnerships kind of expand to be like that. And the added benefit to that is you then have like almost a friend, not just a business partner. It becomes a friend and a very close, associate, if not almost family member. And that's kind of what you're trying to, well, what we at least try to achieve is because, yeah, that then just keeps everything close. You know that you can trust that person. That's not going to happen because he's behind it type thing. You know that's not going to happen. And that, yeah, I don't know if that's naivety on obviously our side, maybe, but that's how we like to do business. And that's the approach we kind of take.
I think it's the way it should be done, and it's kind of interesting, you told me that you're more like a technical SEO guy, and then here we are talking about like, the where I mean, the reality is this. People make emotional decisions and they justify it with logic, and
Mhm.
it's always emotion first, not logic.
And it's kind of the approach we've actually been doing quite a bit of social media ads recently, and there has been a few disagreements on a few different elements from Dooley's and my side. And I was kind of like, look, I literally this was the conversation we had maybe 4. So this is fresh. This is fresh. This is fresh wounds. Right? About 4 days ago, we were like, right, we need to get a social media guy in, and Dooley's kind of like, yeah, well, look, we'll have to be the yes man. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. I'll be that yes guy. I know limited amount of stuff about social media ads. I'm willing to just be the yes guy from the expert, right? And then we get the expert in, and all of a sudden, Dooley's questioning everything the expert's saying. And I'm like, dude, like, you don't know anything about social media. Let the expert do what he's doing. Like, you're only going to annoy him, right? I was like, imagine someone comes to like you and then asks for, offers their help. And then you're just every like second guessing them every 2 seconds. I was like, it's only going to annoy him to the point that he's going to leave. And this is very new. So then he's like, came back and said, oh, no, you're 100% correct. I'm just a bit impatient with it and all of this. And I'm like, well, yeah, I know, but that's just how it goes sometimes. And then one of the messages that I sent him was, look, you're very much doing it off feeling. I don't feel this is going to work. I was like, I kind of want to work off data. So let's launch the ads and the data will tell me if it's working or not.
Yeah.
Then we can make actions. Right now, if we work off your feelings, we're not going to get any ads launched because you're always going to feel like, that might not work. This might not work. Well, let's launch and work off the data. You can work off a smaller data set. Or I think the key is obviously everyone's quite frugal with the money. You don't want to waste
Yeah.
money, right? So I think that's the element of we don't want to waste the money, but at the same time, you have to. It's almost like paid ads perspective from the Google AdWords side. You sometimes have to burn a little bit money to get the data to be able to action where to spend the money.
Yeah.
And that's yeah,
And
we've
think
been going through all of that.
But I mean, obviously, to pitch that back to James Dooley and to convince him why he should do it. Think about how many times that you're like, "This is never going to work," or you're so strong against like something, you test it, and then you're like, "Wow, I was so wrong about that."
Just But that is
This
also
could be
the
one of
good
them.
thing. Yeah, that's also the good thing is he's very willing to, if he is wrong. So he kind of, one of the funny parts, he jumped the gun and basically ignored everything the social media guy said, launched the ads himself. And then the next day he goes, right, I've turned them off. They didn't work. Bag of poo.
Yeah.
And I'll delete them all type thing. And then he said, right, that definitely didn't work. I'm going to leave you to it now. So like, it's always a bit of humble pie as well. And that is the great thing is that we are willing to say, you know what? Yeah, that didn't. At least we tried. Sometimes I almost feel like some people are so scared of trying something that they just never take action. And then they end up just in a rut of staying the same. Um, so like, for instance, with the rolling back to like the personal branding and things like this, it's something that was very uncomfortable to me at the start, but now I'm on podcasts like yourself, John, like podcast owners going on various different podcasts. And, you know, it feels a lot more natural now talking to people. But at the start, oh my God, it was like, I was like this, like
That's me.
sweating. I still get a little bit nervous. Like people send me questions, but now it's getting to a point that I've kind of done enough of them that, if there's a question I don't have an answer to, I will just say it. And that's not my bag. I don't really know much about that. And I think that approach is kind of being appreciated more as opposed to me trying to BS something on
Oh
one of
yeah.
the podcast type thing. So like for instance, with like the business side, the great thing with mine and Dooley's partnership is I'm more SEO paid ads guy. He's definitely more business guy. So, a lot of business decisions before me and Dooley were even partners, I was running past Dooley and sort of saying, do you think this is a good idea? And it's almost like that connection of the business. And then I'm now learning more and more about business and what should and shouldn't happen based off the knowledge that Dewey's given us and obviously watching podcasts and things like this on business side. Um, but yeah, I think that's also a good combination for partnership is trying to find, you don't want Like, I wouldn't really want to partner with another SEO because I just know that's going to cause all sorts of ructions. He doesn't do it the same way I do it. Whereas if someone was, say, social media ads, that's not something I do. Guess what? All of a sudden, we've now got SEO, social media ads, paid ads. Guess what? Business that comes into the mix. We've all of a sudden got a guy who has great business acumen, can go into these big deals with, or negotiate these better deals, CPA models, etc. And then it all starts meshing together nicely. Whereas sometimes, you get involved in a business and it's just, there's too many cooks. And
Yeah.
this is becomes the problem. There's no direction. There's too many cooks.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's for me and my business partner, it's we don't compete on the same level. So it's like I'm good at what I do, he's great at what he does.
And you
We
both respect each other for that, right? It's
yeah,
it's like one of those things. It becomes like a mutual respect for each other's, yeah, strengths. And then it goes from there, it grows from there. And obviously over time, you hopefully all develop and grow together and, you all rise together. Hopefully that's the plan.
yeah. That's happened for us. And I know we almost had a massive blow up in like separating as friends and business partners. It's a long story, but we brought someone that we thought was going to be helpful for our team. And this person was just fully disruptive. Everyone was pissed off with this person. I'm pretty sure he doesn't spend any time listening to podcasts, so I won't mention his name, but it was, I
He'll,
actually
he'll know who it is.
yeah. I look back at that as going, I don't regret going through that experience because
Mm.
it put us to our limit. It really tested us, and we came out from it even stronger. It was
Yeah.
just like, I look back at that going, yeah, it wasn't pleasant at all, but I'm like, we almost needed it so we could actually hit another gear. That's exactly what we did.
Well, it's to quote something that James always says. He says, the most millionaires are made in times of austerity,
Yeah.
which if you look, it tends to be the time, the biggest recessions often then go to the biggest highs, right? And it is true time and time again. And it's kind of the exact same thing, example in your business there. You tried to make a good decision, which at the time was the best decision you could make. But then in time, that decision actually wasn't the best decision, or the person that you got it. Maybe the decision was good, just the person wasn't right. And that's also really hard in business, is to try and find the right people is really difficult. Um, like we have some very close team members, but throughout the time we've had some really bad ones as well. And often one bad what's the saying? I love saying, but sometimes I'm bad at remembering them. Usually I have
Yeah.
ChatGPT up now, telling me it's the one bad egg spoils the broth. I think that's the
Yeah.
saying. It's
Or
been one bad apple.
yeah. Or another saying is what is it? You put a barrel of sewage into a teaspoon of wine and you get sewage. You put a teaspoon of sewage into a barrel of wine, you get sewage.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's the same analogy, right?
Yeah.
As what's the other one? A shit sandwich. It doesn't matter what you put in it, it's still a shit sandwich. And that's kind of the approach, yeah, that we've tried to. So our staffing wise, we tend to be quite small, and then we rely heavily on our managers, and then the managers often either outsource tasks if and when needed, or they tell us if we need more staff, and then we try our best. So a tool that I like to use is called IWAM, and that's primarily off the back of my father was it or is he? Sorry, he's still around. He is like a life coach type thing,
Okay.
and he involved in a tool called Infantry of Work, Aptitude, and Motivation. I think it's very similar to like the DISC model that Mads pushes a lot of. But basically, it's looking at how is this person motivated in the workplace. And as soon as you figure that out, you can actually model your existing team in it. And then you can see if bringing this person in would upset and who it would upset on the team. And whether or not they're a good fit for that team in general. They might have the complete wrong patterns and motivational patterns at the workplace and attitude that it's actually just going to totally disrupt the team. And that's sometimes in big sales companies when you can have the top sales team all of a sudden are now the bottom. And it's because they've hired one core staff member that actually just upset the entire team. But no one's like, there's just bickering and no one's saying this to you. And all of a sudden the performance is just plummeting and plummeting. And I don't know what's wrong. And then you're sitting on it in a few days and you go, that's what's wrong.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes, that person they might be brilliant in another role or just in another company. And,
Yeah.
that's when you kind of have to deal with that. But we've been quite fortunate in that sense of, yeah, trying to hire fast, fire fast
Yeah.
kind of
Uh,
approach.
we do the sort more the higher slow fire fast, and we've learned some painful lessons over the years.
Yeah, I bet.
So, last question is, what do you see of the future of affiliate marketing as it intersects with business intelligence?
So I would say the hardest part so as SEOs and generally, marketing guys, you're usually pretty good with data, or you should be pretty good at, analyzing data. So when utilizing that in sort of the business intelligence role, you'd like to think you should be good at that. However, it's kind of like my situation where I leverage working with Dooley more because he's better at the business side. Just because I'm great at numbers, yeah, I can see that something's not working, but doesn't necessarily mean I have the business acumen to work out how to get it to work. And I would say with regards to affiliate and, 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be SEOs and sort of the paid ads guys who are involved with that. I would definitely look at teaming up with someone who just has a little bit more business acumen, can maybe open your eyes to, other opportunities where you could start building your own brand. You could start building your own products. Drop shipping became a huge thing, but actually, if you look at some businesses nowadays, they started off as drop shipping businesses and now they're actually their own brand. Been to China, they've bought the products, they've started to leverage that side. Now, there's nothing to stop people doing that. But I think the main issue with affiliate marketers, I know from way back when, is they tend to be lazy. They want nice and easy, quick wins and, the 4-hour work week approach. And it doesn't exist, man. Like, I can't remember the last time I worked 4 hours in a week. Like, it just I work when I go on vacation, it just doesn't happen. There isn't a 4-hour work week. I don't know if I'm just addicted to work, but it just doesn't happen. There is not a 4-hour work week. It's a myth. I would say there is a way leveraging your abilities so you can do 4 hours of painful work a week. And by painful, I mean stuff you don't really want to do, but you probably have to do it. And, it's only you who can do that work. And I would say you can get that down to about 4 hours because, you should be able to outsource a lot of that to other team members and things. But I would say, yeah, for the future, I think people just are going to have to start building brands, starting focusing on personal branding, professional brand, spending money on social media advertising. There's plenty of huge platforms out there that TikTok, it's all quite cheap, TikTok and things like this, Pinterest, even utilizing Reddit and Reddit ads. I'm seeing a lot more Reddit ads nowadays, especially now the traffic's surging all of a sudden. I guarantee their revenue numbers when that gets released is going to be huge. But yeah, that's what I would do. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like I didn't realize I was becoming a data company. I was like, I just want to solve this problem. I'm like, whoa, we're now data. So the more I go into data, it's two parts. One, I think more people should pay attention to it. So if you're not the data person, I agree, partner with someone that is. And my background's engineering. I should have been doing this from day one. So it's kind of like you know what you're good at, and I probably should have had the mindset to be like, I should have followed your path from a long time ago. But I agree. Like coming back from Brighton SEO, I think the key takeaway there was just branding was really everything. AI content, well, it can definitely affect your branding. Writing your own content and avoiding AI, well, that's also branding. Going into video, this is 100% branding. And even just listening to some of the branding presentations of like, hearing one person say, I have clients and we're trying to beat our competition. And there's one type of competitor we can't beat, ones that are good at branding. And it's like, okay, we're hearing branding over and over again, but I think it's true. It's be your own brand, where brand, it builds trust. Just coming off the recording from Jason Barnard, it's, I had no idea that doing this podcast stuff was going to be as valuable as it was. And like you said, it just being super uncomfortable getting started. I'm like, whatever. It's like, let's try. It took probably a good year before I realized, wait a minute, this is like a cheat codes here. This is
Yeah.
this is opening up so many doors that I think more people should do it. But my belief is that video content is very difficult to get started with. And not
Yeah.
every founder wants to even do like written interviews and say, okay, I'm going to be the pseudo charismatic person. So I'd say good luck to people out there to try to find a way to build that. And I think people should need to look at going, well, what is social media? It's trust. It's kind of like amplified search.
No, yeah, 100%. So one of the funny bits is like I've been doing all of these podcasts and things, but actually so far I haven't started my own YouTube channel. I've just been, yeah, I'll just go on others. It's fine. I'll do a bit of LinkedIn. I've created the channel, but it's very blank right now. But I actually had one, Vlad from ODYS, he
Yeah.
mentioned it and messaged us the other day and went, dude, this channel's so old. What are you doing with it? It had like me from like 12 years ago on it when I was doing like some VA training video on a Google Hangout. That's how old it is, right? And I was like, oh God, I look so young. I need to delete and clean this up. But I think the first step for me was getting out on these sort of, other people's platforms. Because at the same time, I can approach, let's say, for instance, I'd made my own channel and then I approach you, you're probably going to be like, who's this guy? He's got
Yeah.
no subscribers, no views. Whereas when it goes the other way around and then you start going on interviews and you built your own channel up a little bit and having these guests and like yourself and things going on to yours, it then becomes something that's a little bit easier to leverage, I think.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. I think we've actually got a few sales from just being guests on other people's podcasts. I'm like, oh, how did you hear about us? Oh, it was
yeah.
on Olgazar's podcast. I'm like, really? Like the one thing we talking about iGaming? And
Yeah.
she's like, no, that was good. I mean, I guess maybe there's not a lot of people talking about that specific niche. I think not a lot of people want to put their names and faces associated with iGaming.
And
But
that's also, I think that you've actually probably just hit on something as well, which is like the hidden little bit of SEO is, people, it was always, and it has always been something that you kind of just do in the shadows. Like you don't really want to be shouting from the roof. We've seen it in the latest updates. There's been a lot of influencers who had public sites and all of a sudden being hit, right? Well, and some of these public sites were only being announced on YouTube channels. Like that is where they were being announced, and all of a sudden they've been hit, and you're like, and then all of a sudden you've got all of the, introverts going, well, that's why you shouldn't be doing that sort of stuff on, and then mention it on YouTube. So I think, yeah, I think there's a double-edged sword with it, and it's always, about sort of treading carefully as well. But I don't think I, I don't think there would be any harm to building a brand, getting out there. Obviously, just make sure you're not maybe mentioning money sites and things like this. Maybe stay away from that.
yeah, but yeah, just to be at least intentional. I think it's good to say, okay, this is my brand. These are my sites, and I think Google wants to see more public ownership. As I think when you have too many of the opposite, that's when it gets bad.
Yeah. No, exactly.
So, Carl, thank you so much for doing this. I want to pass it back to you to let you share how people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so the best way now is karlhudson.co.uk. It has all my socials and things on there, and you can get in touch, drop us an email on that as well. At one point, there was a huge mess where I had it everywhere and I was having to read out Instagram and all that, but it's probably the best, just karlhudson.co.uk, and then you can find my socials on there.
We'll include all of that, except for maybe not the YouTube channel yet.
You just not the, don't click the YouTube link, not yet.
Awesome, Carl. Thank you so much for doing this.
Cheers, John. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for tuning in to the Affiliate BI podcast. I'd like to take this time to ask for a small favor to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. That helps us expand our reach to rank higher in podcast directories and reach more listeners.